so he actually concludes his thoughts on this matter by, and this is going to sound weird coming from a religious theologian, but Bonhoeffer says what we need to do is we need to live as though God does not exist, right? That's what Christianity come of age looks like. Christianity that takes into account the things that we now know about the world that they didn't know back when they were blaming their own sin for the fact that locusts came and ate all the corn, right? I don't know if locusts eat corn, but whatever, you get the point. So he says this: we cannot be honest unless we recognize that we have to live in the world as if God does not exist. God himself compels us to recognize it. Thus, our coming of age leads to a truer recognition of our situation before God. God would have us know that we must live as those who manage their lives without God. Now, I know it sounds strange coming from a Lutheran theologian and a Christian for him to say that we need to become atheists to this idol God, that we need to become atheists with respect to this Deus Ex Machina, this God who solves all of our problems and helps us avoid the void. To say that we need to become atheists to that God is not the same as, Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, the so-called new atheists who, have sort of, taken the popular culture by storm in some sense. They become almost religious figures, the devotion that people have to them. But that's a very different kind of thing. That's a very cold, materialistic, clinical sort of atheism that I find sad and boring. Bonhoeffer, on the other hand, is not saying that, and that's not what I've been saying throughout this course on exile and empire, but rather, if God is spirit, as we've seen, and if the veil has been torn, and we're going to get into this, eventually, but if Christ has poured himself out, that's that Greek term kenosis. If Christ has poured himself out, or in the way Paul uses it, he emptied himself, okay? Then it's not that we are simply atheists full stop, but rather what that means is that we have become atheists with respect to a God who is an idol. We've become atheists with respect to a God who is nothing but a Deus Ex Machina, a convenient a priori. And instead, we have recognized that, as I said, this entire system has been eliminated. This whole system has been made a mockery of. This entire system, according to which God is this external sacred object that we can just get to if we just do the right thing and tick the right boxes. This entire system has been put to open shame, to quote Paul again from Colossians 2. But as Hebrews 10 says, but there is a new and living way that has been opened up for us through the veil, that is to say, through his flesh, right? And so the point of that pantsing, as it were, of the Mosaic economy and of the principalities and powers that drive it is not just to say, oh, look, that was all just a big lie, so see ya. But no, the point of that was to inaugurate a new way, what the Bible calls a new covenant. And what I'm suggesting, piggybacking off of Bonhoeffer, what I'm suggesting is that this new and living way involves an entirely different way of thinking about, of conceptualizing, and of relating to God. That he's no longer this sacred object that exists outside of us, that is in some other realm that is in control of everything. Again, we're slipping back in that thinking into that religious a priori, that Deus Ex Machina mentality, right? But rather, that entire system has been set aside and something new has taken its place. And as I mentioned last time, when we think of God as this sort of genie in a bottle, which many people still do, I would argue that we haven't truly said goodbye to the old covenant. We haven't truly allowed the new and living way to emerge. And instead we are falling back into the same trap that we were in before, only now it's Jesus who is the spokesperson rather than Moses, right? What I would argue, and what I have been arguing, is that the departure from this old way has to be more radical than that, okay? And so that is what Bonhoeffer is getting at when he talks about the fact that we need to live in the world as though God does not exist. We need to live in the world as those who manage their lives without God. We're going to get into what that means. We're going to talk about what exactly that looks like in the weeks to come, in the talks that I give on this subject going further. But again, this is not just garden variety atheism. Okay, it's very different from that. It's the result of a God who is spirit, who has poured himself out upon the world in order to haunt us, in order to call us, invoke us, entreat us, but all without the force of arms, all without a divine imperial army to impose his will. And so that is just beginning to scratch the surface of what this religion come of age, this religionless Christianity looks like.